couple times about the pillars of the Center for Business Analytics. We talked about curriculum, we talked about practice, and the third pillar is research. So what Bill Wagner is going to talk about is some of the things he found in research, actually his practice of mobile analytics. The research project actually in this area came out of the idea from Karen Stein, who's from Vertex, and again one of the members of our advisory council. And Karen had an interesting idea: is does the choice of graphical display impact your decision? And if so, then what is the impact as you move from a laptop to a mobile device? Because it isn't one size fits all. As you know, the pie chart doesn't look as well on mobile devices. So we're going to kick off a little bit of a research project in that area. Karen, Bill, Matt, and I are going to be involved in that. We're going to start that this summer. If anybody is interested in, we're going to build a survey, if you will, or a test, and ask people what their preferences are, and they in fact make the right decisions as we look at the different levels of PC, tablet, and smartphone, and different types of brands. So if anybody's interested in being a participant in that stuff, it's going to be pretty easy. It'll be 15, 20 minutes a week for 7 to 8 week period. Just let us know and we can lead up to that. We're going to have a pretty broad sample size for that. So the next speaker is Dr. Bill Wagner. And Bill is kind of one of the leading lights, I think, in the business school in terms of professor. He teaches, I don't know how many courses. You mention something to him, he goes and he researches it and develops a course. And then 2 years later, he gets involved in something else. He develops a course with it. He probably developed many courses. And, he collaborates with different parts of the university, too. So he's not somebody who just comes in and teaches, one or two courses. Bill's very interested in learning new things and then in kind of imparting that to the students, both at the undergraduate and the graduate level. So Bill's going to talk to us today about the landscape of what's going on in mobile analytics. You hear a lot about it, but Bill's going to talk to us a little bit about what's out there. And Bill's actually kind of done it both from a instructor point of view and actually involved in some business. So please join me in welcoming Bill Wagner.
Thank you for inviting me to speak here at the Center for Business Analytics. I believe this is the first talk on mobile analytics, and I agree, when you agreed to do this like 3 months ago, you don't think about, that'll be something, I can throw that together, but I'm sure, I'm just talking to some of you, I know many of you are involved in mobile, and it's like a Wild West, so this is going to be kind of different type discussion here, and I encourage everyone to share because there's really no research out there in this area. I really gave a good effort in terms of academic side. I'm interested from both the academic and practitioner side, doing research in this area, and there's not much out there, but as I said, it's like a Wild West. We all know about Instagram and the kids making, what is it, 1.2 billion off their 18-month little project. So, there's all these stories out there. So, basically, I've structured it originally as like an overview of one of the issues of mobile analytics. And probably I should, in retrospect, not have been so ambitious to call it mobile analytics because it's all really mobile BI, more, scorecards and dashboards. In the mobile space right at this point, but from an academic, my God, I had to learn how to do a neural net. So there, you guys are going to use them too, right? Or a genetic algorithm. I want it on my mobile, even if I don't use it. But right, that's the academic kind of. We learned all these tools, but anyway, so we'll talk about some of the. Is it a fad or a trend? I think. We'll probably all agree it's a trend, definitely a trend. You look at every chart and every user thing, it's pretty crazy. Who are the users? Obviously, this is important in terms of designing mobile apps. Who are the major vendors out there and playing in the space? It's always fun to talk about companies like Nokia, which is an acronym for not operational, killed in action. Right? I shouldn't say that. It's not good to kick a company when they're down, right? So they're going to take Microsoft down with them apparently too. In the Wall Street Journal this morning, there was a nice article about that. So we'll talk about different approaches to development. You know, the devil's in the details. You know, I'm an IT guy, and I'm also CTO of a mobile startup. And, you know, I'm losing hair trying to figure out, okay, Internet Explorer 7, you know, well, do I do a mobile web, or should I do a hybrid app, or you know, even with this silly, well, I shouldn't say silly, the iPad I recently broke down and bought an iPad 2, and just getting it to connect and project won't accept certain connectors, and iPad, you need the Apple TV and so on. There's a lot of the devil's in the details, as we all know. So feel free to jump in and share your experiences. I think that's really what the group is all about, sharing. And I have a few ideas for best practices and some talk about research issues more from an academic practitioner side too. So just a little background on me. Okay. Matt was actually the one who hired me 21 years ago, so thank you, Matt.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. I've been an original member of the center, and as Tom said, I haven't learned yet to say no to a good course idea, so I do all
about 18,000 courses.
Well, I mean, I am in IT. This is kind of, I'm not, well, I guess, you know, we're the one discipline, we actually make something and try to see if it works, you know, kind of, so it's kind of fun, but you gotta obviously change and adapt quickly. So I've been teaching mobile app development course for 2 years now, and it's, I'll just say a few words. The course I do in conjunction with computer science and computer engineering. So we get 10 students from the V school, 10 from engineering, and 10 from comp sci. They work in teams of 3. So it's been really educational for all of us to, and I'm team teaching it with comp sci and computer engineering faculty. So it's a very expensive course for the university to try and support, although, you know, we don't get paid 3 times normal. So. But anyway, it's one of those win-win. I try to look for a win-win situation in the curriculum, and obviously student interest is sky high in mobile app right now. So, and in addition to making an app, we make them do a business plan for the app too. So it's, and then they do a pitch day, and we have outside experts come and evaluate them. So I also coordinate the SAP Alliance with Villanova. Don't hold that against me. I'm not here to sell SAP. Although I think, well, we can announce that Villanova got approved to be a lighthouse university in the new HANA curriculum. So there are about 10 schools out of 1,200 worldwide. So we're all excited. Sue Metzger took the point on this and wrote up the initial application. So this is a really big deal for us. We're going to be working on actually getting students on these $1 million, you know, devices, on a device, actually doing big data analytics. And we're working with Hasso-Plattner Institute. So this is I hadn't even told Matt this yet. So
that's fantastic.
So imagine you get students that actually are getting their hands dirty doing some actual big data analytics. Okay. Okay, I don't mean to trivialize the whole idea of mobile app, but the guy who did this app was 15 years old when he did it, and he's kind of a legend in the world of Apple, which I'm new to, but I found this out. So he did, when he was 15, he did iFart app, right? How many did he sell? At 99 cents each. Well, he's still selling them, but last I looked, it was 900,000. Wow. 15-year-old novelty app. Last year he tried to sell it on eBay for $1 million. So if you bought it, you would get the company plus all the intellectual property. So I don't know if he sold it or not. So is this the future of mobile? Let's hope not. Or is this the future of mobile? I'm sure I confess to a momentary obsession with Angry Birds too. Now that they have the Eagles signed in too, Andy Reid, you may have saw that the recent one. So I couldn't get a screenshot of that one though. So obviously gaming is a big part of mobile, but we're in the business school. We're interested in mobile for business, right? So I had to put a screenshot of Roamby. Everyone hear of Roamby? They're one of my favorites in this space. And I was just at Sapphire in Orlando, and they had a really nice setup there. And I did talk, analytics was all over. It was all in Sapphire this year. Big data, analytics, mobile. Those are like the main time. And obviously they cross over. So I got to see a lot of demos and really cool stuff. So, but if you look in, say, the app stores, the various app stores for Android and Apple, what kind of business apps do you see out there? Basically, tip calculators. Who can't calculate a tip?
A lot of people.
Oh, come on now.
Talk to the waitresses, they'll tell you.
Well, maybe you're right there. I
Nice
kid.
deliberate.
Yes, yes. Please, please. Now, I've been teaching for 21 years. I think they could all, well, maybe not. I don't know. So, the other area is expense tracking. That's the main type of business apps. So, really, I think we're at the beginning of a huge, wave. And believe me, I'm in the IT industry, so you can probably bet that I've seen a little bit of hype come. There's a hype all the time. So as an IT faculty member, one of my jobs is kind of try and separate. Well, where should we go in the curriculum in Villanova? We don't want to. We can't turn and follow every little new thing coming down the pike. And a lot of them, as you know, are software vendors just kind of churning their customers with renaming the same thing something different, sexy, right? Okay, so what we're going to talk more about, obviously, the business of mobile. And if you think, just a few slides showing you, there are definite trends happening here in terms of the basic number of, it's kind of weird to think this device may be a dinosaur in 2 years. It's already a dinosaur to me, but I've had it for 4 years now, so next week we get the new ones. So this is a good thing. But think about it. How many of you use your tablet for everything? Anyone here? 3? How many of you go from tablets to PCs and back and forth? 4. Okay. There's another. See, we're in the middle of a transitional phase, possibly. It's hard to tell because there are a lot of hybrid movements going on. So if you look at the number of smartphones and tablets, by the way, there are over 5 billion connected devices out there now, besides mobile devices out there, including feature phones and so on. 5 billion. Did I say million? Okay, 5 billion. Bill McDermott said that's more than the number of toothbrushes in the world. Right? That was. Now this is it's hard to read. I know. Excuse the size here, but you can see sales in terms of smartphone versus feature phone. So it's interesting to think about Android versus Apple and RIM and for a moment talk about their strategies, because what is Apple and Google and Apple are fighting over the feature phone sales, right? And Google actually subsidizes manufacturers to produce Android phones. They give them $50 for every phone, basically. Does Apple do that? What's their strategy?
They control the phone.
Exactly, yeah. It's a whole different strategy. Not only do they control it, but they'll charge you $50 for every phone you make. On top of, so that's why Android grew their market share so quickly, right? So it's kind of like, so obviously Apple's shooting for the high end of the conversion. There were 2 billion feature phones that have to be converted in the next 18 months. Okay, so Android's looking at the low end, whereas Google, Google Android is at the low end of that market, whereas Apple wants the high end. I mean, literally, they're rioting in Beijing. Remember when the Apple, the 4G phone or 4S, whatever it came out? Riots. What other technology do you see that happening? It's kind of weird. So here's another big issue here. Global mobile versus desktop internet use will pass in a couple of years. You're going to have more mobile connection to the internet than with PC or desktop. Now, why is this a big deal? Think about it.
Well, our touch point to the customers are going to need it for the internet.
Exactly. That's a major thing. Our touch point, business people's touch point, is going to be. Now does it make sense why Google wants to grab up mobile market share? Because they want that search engine in your pocket. They don't want it left on your desktop, right? That's how they make money. And now they're rolling out all the big local search ads too. That's a whole new untapped space. I should know my daughter is a YouTube celebrity. She has a channel, and she doesn't make money off ads from users that come into her YouTube channel via mobile phones. It's only via the desktop where they can click on an ad and she'll get 20 cents or whatever off that. And in the Google Analytics, she can actually, I've looked, and you can tell exactly what the percentages are and how it's impacting, et cetera, you know, where they're coming from. Yeah, Cheryl?
I could be wrong because I'm not as up on this as you are, but like I was reading all the new stuff with Verizon changing their pricing plans, and they think other companies are going to come along. Do you think that will affect the big increase in the mobile internet? Because my understanding is true, right? I'm going to have to pay by the gigabytes used for my mobile, where if I go to my desktop and stuff.
You're right. Yeah. No, that's.
Do you think that might decrease? I mean,
yeah. No.
Some of that, because I mean, all the companies can get the same pricing.
Well.
I don't know.
I think it's going to follow the cell phone to landline pattern. If you look, you buy a landline now, it's really, really cheap.
Yeah.
People still use their cell phones, so I think it will see the same thing there.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to shake out, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm not paying my kids' cell phone bills anymore, so that's all I.
Well, now you can't get the unlimited. Like
No,
they have
you're right.
unlimited now, but now they're going to make you start charging by how many gigabytes.
Yeah, there's a big fight over the bandwidth issues
Yeah,
now. So
right.
this is part of the, but there are solutions too to the bandwidth issues coming. I mean, we are right on Internet 2, right along the train tracks here. You may not know it, but we are sitting on one of the biggest data pipelines on the East Coast, going right through Manioc, where they had all the startup companies, and they expect it to, you know, volume the bandwidth increase 10,000-fold here. So some of the technology. So there's a lot of factors at play here in terms of technology. But this, you're exactly right. So here's some other trends. In terms of the number of shipments, we should have bought Apple stock about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, right? Shoulda, woulda. Anyway, then looking at the number of organizations that are planning to actually replace their PCs, 31%. Most are going to the iPad. Obviously, this is, although I work with two teams of Indian developers, and they just told me a couple weeks ago that every school kid in India is going to get a Android tablet. So it's going to talk about a shot in the arm for Android tablets here. I have my little Android tablet, the Galaxy, the G Tab, which is kind of cool. But anyway, so that should be interesting to see. So I'm not even talking about educational mobile. You know, this is a huge area. Now, 2.7 hours a day on mobile devices, the average American. That to me doesn't look right, but a lot of that is social. Kids doing social media on their mobile. Of course, I just about got T-boned
Yeah.
by a girl on her smartphone or phone on the way here, driving her SUV on the Blue Route. So,
Today?
yes.
Awesome.
Every day, practically. She just kept talking, so anyway. But for our interest, organizations are looking at a lot of mobile BI this year and the following year. So it's a lot of growth in this area, and we'll look at some of the apps out there here. Now, as I said, it's really a misnomer, probably call it business analytics, even though we use that as kind of a general term for BI and data mining type tools and things, optimization, linear program, all of that falls into analytics. But mostly you see out there now, the users are doing, executives, because they're on the road a lot and need to be connected, acting, get the data, or more operational field sales people, field service people, that type of thing, using dashboards and scorecards right now. So, and if you look at what they're doing, most of them are actually consuming data versus actually creating new data or new knowledge through analytics. So I guess that means that we won't be seeing, in the near future, we won't be seeing mobile mobile silos, like we see spreadsheet silos. The data goes out to your desktop, people massage it, they can't upload it back, so the data's changed, so we end up with these data silos, spreadsheet silos. So maybe if they're not going to actually change the data on their mobile device, we're going to avoid some of that problem in the short run. So most of them are new. Most of the users of mobile business intelligence or BI are new to this in general. So they're not interested in linear programming at this point, probably, or optimization. But yeah.
What could happen though perhaps is that maybe a number of apps will be developed.
You're my plant in the audience. Yeah, I would think so. Hopefully, I didn't have to learn that for nothing. No, I mean, exactly right. I think the growth area will be in real what we would call more analytics apps, more intensive type apps. I mean, obviously this device, of course, has more power than ENIAC, right? Way more. Your old HP calculator had more power than ENIAC, right? So we all know that. So now, what are the mobile users actually doing? It's again hard to see here. Retail is high. General reference, if you search, is very high. But you can see the growth. That's from 2010 to 2011, 134%, 94%, very high. Now this is just general. This is not for BI purposes. So if you think about in terms of BI, the actual consumption versus the analysis is, this is just, I don't have any data on that, but it's very high on the mobile device. Questions so far? Questions? Feel free to. So, I'm sorry.
What would constitute analytics on those? Is it creating data like you said?
Yeah, doing actual analysis. If you're going to do like regression or cluster analysis or something, right?
Kind of predict the model.
Yeah, or predictive analytics is what I would call it. Yeah. But I don't know.
Actively today, are they actually doing that part of it on devices?
Not really. That's the problem. We would like them to be doing more of this, and I think that's why. Well, just to give them the power of
For what?
Predictive analytics.
For what decision? I don't mean to be controversial,
No.
but I mean, you talk about decisions, and some people, there's a group of people that want it, but it's a huge hype about I gotta have stuff on my mobile phone.
True, there's
For
a lot
what?
of hype.
Where's your decision making? I'm talking about businesses.
Well, I mean, it could be
If your sales,
planning
if
or
your sales and your selling cycle is short,
Yeah.
if you're planning to do a strat plan, if you want to interact because you want to interact with a meeting and you're on the run and you get the information down, I can see those. But there's a lot more hype.
Well, this has always been the case, for sure. But, yeah, I mean, I think that if we can expand the use, if, first we have research says, are they more of the add to productivity and efficiency? We don't even know that. But getting access to the data quicker and more timely fashion would help for those decisions that need, hopefully, are going to have a time element to them.
Yeah, so this is what I do is I've been marketing for mobile devices. So I oversee digital projects with Advisor in my business unit for overseas customers. So maybe we can talk afterwards.
Mike, yeah. Yeah, Mike, did you?
Pfizer and other pharmaceutical companies, they advanced call routing, the GPS in a device to figure out where I'm going next to talk to. That happens in real time.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that there aren't applications that are very critical and that can be really, really important and improve efficiency and effectiveness, decision-making, and reduce costs. I'm saying it's not across the board. And I've seen companies that move and have mobile projects that try to drive data into mobile that they don't need to. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's why I think you have to think through which tasks are really suited for BI, mobile BI, or mobile BA analytics. If you think about that, so obviously ones that really have a time dimension, tasks that need to be, you know, if you're doing a personnel review, you're a manager of personnel, you don't have to do that this instant, you know, you can do it over the weekend, you can, you know, but if you're managing a marketing campaign and some of the materials aren't working, it'd be nice to know that earlier if possible, right? And so we can change in the middle if we want to try that.
It would seem like an early model. I mean, something like a price model. That first, you know, live sales moves. That's
Right.
seemed to be a no-brainer.
Yeah, there's a good example too, yeah.
So perhaps any kind of real-time decision-making is probably the issue.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. So, and there are cases where information actually is losing its value too, if you don't act upon it quickly. So there is what we call the latency issue of decision latency and decision theory. The issues are all the same. With whatever technology platform changes, we all know that the basic issues are still the same. Does it make us help us make better decisions and more efficient and be more productive? Right? That's still the question. You know, Herbert Simon was working on in the 70s, basically. So,
From a marketing function, one of my projects has been to roll out the iPad for marketing, presentation of the materials to doctors. And right now, we don't, you know, when you're, you know, traditionally the rep goes in and shows them on a piece of paper, hey, this is what we're looking at. But without knowing what visibility inside of that conversation, up to a point where they were using tablet PCs and now the iPad. So now we can see that activity and we can use that as analytics to overlay that with sales data and then be able to see activity and correspond the triggered behavior and see what focuses the messaging that we use.
yeah, that's a good example. I had a student at IMS working on a similar research project at one point too. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Well, that gets into a lot of issues too in terms of real time. You know, we've been trying for this for years. So, okay, so think about it. I mean, I'm not here to say that mobile BI or BA is going to solve all the business problems today. So
It's interesting though, picking up from that thread, are you saying that when the rep makes the presentation, he's being or she's being, the presentation, the way she's delivering it is being brought back to the central office?
Yeah, we can record those analytics of the activity.
Because that could be a fabulous mobile application. And then you can do a text search and then match that up to see how the sales come in afterwards.
Yeah, there's many ways of overlaying the data, and especially online versus offline. So there's a lot of things that we're learning through trial and error as well. But it's been a pretty fascinating project. We've rolled it out to many countries worldwide. So gotten some really great feedback. Direction sounds great.
So, I mean, we keep talking about this technology, but what is really different today about the mobile platform? You know, obviously convenience is a big factor, you know, and right now we're transitioning from this nice to have it to a must-have type mode. So we're still early. If you look at the Gartner, you know, hype chart, you know, have everyone seen the Gartner hype cycle? You know, you get up to the peak of overinflated expectations, and then you go to the trough of delusion, and so, you know, like Betamax, or, you know, think about all, or what are those little Segways, thank you, yes. Although I guess they're still out there. They are a total failure. So anyway, there's this big Gartner hype cycle that we go through, and I suppose you know, like any IT product, you know, it gets through it really gets overhyped. So you got to be, you know, discriminating in what you develop. I think it's exactly true for certain apps. But think about, I was actually some executive, I did some training for a large company, and they actually wanted me to write a use case so they could all have iPads. I said, what do you want iPads for? We just want them. We don't know. Everyone else has them. I swear. I won't tell you who, but this was. So they wanted me to help them write a use case so they can go buy iPads for all their junior executives because they felt really inferior without them, I guess. So anyway, and then the SOLOMO, everyone knows. Social, local, mobile, all this massive amount of data that is kind of causing the proliferation of all these new mobile BI mashups, right? You know, your students, well, you're probably better off asking a 12-year-old what's hot right now, you know, or whatever, because they seem to be on top of these trends more than I am. I mean, my daughter, who is a Japanese major, you know, she started asking me about Rombi, because all her friends were doing Rombi or trying to get jobs doing Rombi or something like that. So, I mean, Rombi, so, you know, I didn't know about it then myself, but it's that kind of a hot new dashboard tool out there. So, location data, we all know. I mean, one of the you know, Pentagon now set up a data center with a yottabytes worth of data. They had to invent a new term for the amount of flyover data of Afghanistan and all those countries that they do the flights over to store this. I think it's you know, 1,000 zettabytes or whatever. So, but I promise not to go into the bits and bytes here. So, but and then of course we all know the map wars are heating up. Apple threatened they're coming out with their new map product, so they can jettison Google products. And now in the camera area, this is actually all new when you think about it, combining all this data in BI apps. This is kind of the challenge for us today, thinking about how we can take some of this data, create new BI apps that might be really good and productive, you know, thinking about it. You may have seen the augmented reality app. So Google has a sky map. You know, the sky map, you hold the camera up to the sky and it tells you what the stars are that you're looking at. That's an example of Yelp. There's another example of augmented reality type app. So I'm a Civil War nut, so I always wanted to, you know, do one of Gettysburg or something, you know, that I could actually see what happened in different places. But now, near field communication chips, these are out there. New Android phones have them, so you can actually text money to the cab driver or to the bartender or whatever, your friend, or you can tap a little device and pay your retail device, just like instead of scanning. Although I'm a little uncertain, you know, how much do you save instead of swiping a credit card or a debit card? I mean, you're talking about a few seconds here. I don't know if it justifies millions of dollars of investment in near-field communication chips. But on top of that, you can also send receipts, paper documents, coupons, all kinds of stuff with the near-field communication chip. So all this kind of gets us into the big data aspect of mobile BI, because they keep saying we're going to have real-time access to this massive amounts of this new data that's out there. So, but there are obstacles like the bandwidth that Cheryl was mentioning. And why do they keep the processor speed so they don't upgrade the processor in these phones very frequently, do they? If you think about it, you can get a really high-powered processor in your laptop, but they're actually trying to keep the lid on the demands. Some of the carriers are trying to keep the lid on demand for data because they can't handle it. So they're trying to tamp it down by giving you 1.2 gigahertz processor versus 3 gigahertz or whatever. So
What about security issues? I was just thinking, well, we have the big thing with the LinkedIn dates, and then you're talking about the NFC chip
NFC
stuff.
chip.
What happens if I have all that on my phone and, like, my kids
Well, that's
have my phone
obviously-
and they lose it, right?
yeah, no, that's for all these dashboards and scorecards out there. That's why the enterprise mobile BI, which is like SAP and Oracle, and they all have, they're pushing it because they are more secure. So they can literally go and shut down and wipe your phone remotely now. So it's gotten a lot better. Anthony, if you
Yeah.
had this issue?
Yeah, so there's usually enterprises have something that they have to place under the home light. You actually find your device, and then some of the hardware manufacturers like Apple will allow you to try that's not me. That's that concern is.
Anyone else have any thoughts on security issues? Okay, well, no.
Well, I know there's new technology being developed now, which instead of using a fingerprint, or using your iPrint or something like that, just the way that you type into a mobile device, the way you use the thumbs, your rhythm, so to speak, is going to be its own security device. It's being developed as we speak.
Yeah. That's, they can, there's a neural net app that actually can learn your patterns for typing, and that's been around for a while, but that's a good example. They've gotten, multiple logins. Encryption is a big deal. Now they will encrypt everything that comes to you on your mobile device if you're using some of the enterprise mobile BI tools out there, like Sybase, Business Objects, and Oracle, Hyperion. Hyperion, I get them mixed up. So here's a look at a typical, if you think about you're going to go out and develop, a mobile BI app, think about the options. You can go native for every device, which in the beginning you had to do, basically, which means, so think about how many of you had a BlackBerry? How many still have a BlackBerry? You want to admit it? Okay, all right. My students, I ask my students, and they won't admit it. They're like, it's not high in the cool factor. I said, oh well, you're on dad's plan or mom's plan, I guess. So, how many iPhone users? Android? Well, my plan is up in July, so I've got a big decision to make here. So for my Droid X, which was a 4-inch screen, so. But anyway, think about if you had to develop for each of those devices, they all have differences, and they're annoying differences from a tech person. Some of them are very annoying, and the UI is different, and some of them, iPhone's famous for its very intuitive interface. People love it. Now, HTML5, how many of you have heard of HTML5? So what's the big deal? Anyone?
iPhones won't run Flash. So HTML5 is Flash.
Aha! Devil's in the details again. Flash has been a thorn in Apple's side for a long time. HTML5, anything else you want to add? It can run Flash. Is that, next generation HTML, right? You think of it that way, yeah. So,
Standard.
yeah. Now it's looking actually pretty good. Now, what are the issues with HTML5? If you want to, it's for a mobile web app, you can use it for that, and use it with JavaScript to come up with mobile web apps that will run on any device, too. But the problem is they can't access like camera, some of the different built-in devices or location data where they didn't have access to a little database on the device. So, there were issues there, but they're solving those issues and it's getting a lot better. So they're hybrid. There's hybrid mobile web, there's hybrid native, so it's confusing here, but there are tools out there, frameworks. There's a couple dozen of them. They're looking good too. They actually use HTML5 and JavaScript to hook into some of the APIs out there for the different devices. Or you could use an intermediary company such as Roundtable, which uses a platform as a service model, basically, where they take care of these issues for you. Here's an example of kind of a typical, there's a bunch of companies out there, emerging companies, that do this mobile BI, and basically involves, here you see, you're going to have a separate server in place to run your mobile BI, and then it can hook into all your major enterprise apps, Salesforce, Business Objects, Oracle, IBM. So that's kind of the benefit that they have too, right? If they have built-in hooks, they can already get the data out. So I can tell you, when I was at Sapphire, one of the attractive things about teaching students how to develop mobile apps using Sybase Unwired platform, SAP bought Sybase 2 years ago, right? But one of the attractive things is that they have thousands of services already pre-exposed. What do I mean by a service in the computer mumbo jumbo? Anyone want to? What's a service? When I say the service is exposed, it's not like this, but it's more like, say you want to look up a customer. That's a service. Dumb things, right? Dumb things that only IT people would be interested in. But now you can do a mashup with a map app and customer lookup. So they've got thousands of these. Vendor lookup, vendor search, all that kind of stuff are what we call services, and they're already there. So if you're like I talked to somebody from Procter & Gamble, they were rolling out 130 mobile BI apps this year alone using this architecture, hooking into the existing enterprise system, getting the services, and then doing a mashup. So that's really cool when you think about it. So you can hook in, and then you can output it in any of the major platforms. So this is what we call platform as a service type model. Questions? So who are the major players? So for our, I mentioned a bunch of them. Right around here we have ClickTech. We should have bought their stock 2.5 years ago. They came out at $10 a share. They topped out at 35 this last fall, but they're like 22 now. So, but ClickTech I think will probably be bought at some point by S&P or some other company. Of course, Microsoft, I don't know what the heck they're doing. They're kind of really out of it. Especially when you think mobile, when you think mobile BI, you don't think about Microsoft really, right? So
let me just ask you, let me drill that a second.
Sure.
So Windows 8, you understand the development, what's going on with Windows 8 to do, and all the philosophy about being able to go at different levels of platforms. So you really think that's not going to have any impact? I've been just curious because, with Microsoft, are they going to go into a phone, own it? They've done that with some of the gaming systems. Just curious to see, because clearly in audiences like this, Microsoft are written on, done. And I'd see it time and again, so I'm going to see if that's the same situation.
Well,
I'm not from Microsoft.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying that.
I don't have an answer.
Microsoft offered each of my student teams a free smartphone, ran Windows mobile.
Windows 8?
No, it wasn't 8, it was the last one here.
Yeah, because they know anything before this is junk.
Yeah, none of the students would nibble at it at all. So that's an indicator of their interest. What was the one phone that didn't they have the phone with the blocks that and then it's all social media and everything? What was that called? The Migo or no? Well,
They're all failures. They were all failures.
They only spent $500 million to market that to you, and it's still, they should have used the Bank of America as a target. They only go to our center presentations here. Okay, so but it's there are some pretty interesting companies out there doing. MicroStrategy actually was early on. Now, different ones have different I put this on after the last time because some of them have different focuses. You know, like Rumby, they will give you a native app as a platform as a service, whereas SAP uses a hybrid type of technology, you know, where JavaScript and HTML5, but they have different competing, you know, type approaches. ClickTech is actually in ClickView, and now they've spoken here, and they're members, I believe. They just hired one of my first hires there at ClickTech, and they're more of a web-based mobile BI. So, but they do a really good job with it, you know, in terms of more like OLAP, you know, drilling down and slicing and dicing type BI type reports. Other questions or comments? Some of you know these companies, Anthony?
I sat in a presentation by Nielsen this past week, where it was a week and a half ago, where actually they have a service where it's actually a way of actually capturing analytics off of mobile device usage. Because they presented some data off of others, like for a 24-hour period of time, where they can actually capture their activity by hour and by if it's a web or mobile web or an app, or what sites they went to, you know, what functionalities on the phone, and so Nielsen has a tool that does that as well.
Cool. That's,
very specific.
Yeah. I bet they charge for it.
They do.
Have to charge too.
Yeah.
So that's the next thing. I've been trying to work on combining social media data from different ones to do actual analytics of different media channels, and it's difficult. Okay. Other questions or comments? Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's a good list. I don't see Tableau.
You know, I was looking for that.
Yeah.
I have students actually doing Tableau. Yeah. Do you want to say a few words about what?
I'm not from Tableau.
Oh.
I'm from BMS, and right now we have a couple of pilots going on. One with Diplo Spotfire and another one with Tableau. And based on our research so far, I mean, they're pretty much competitors in the visual analytics space. So depending on the requirements, of course, one versus the other, based on
Do they have a mobile? Do they have a mobile tool?
They certainly have mobile.
Oh, okay.
I use them.
Would you put them on emerging players, I guess?
Yeah. Our business unit uses it.
I mean, maybe you should demo here. I'm all set up if anyone wants to demo some of their.
It's got an interface probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, the TDWI conference last year, Tim Cohen had a many things off with another, which is not on the list, so, basic BI presentation. The cookies and stuff. Tableau basically two take them up and stack them out.
Wow, okay.
So,
Yeah, no, I have students that are telling me they've been sent to Tableau training, and okay, I heard some Young and KPMG, they're all into it too, so you're right, good call. Maybe, I was thinking maybe we should have like a mobile BI bake-off or something. That might be a cool for a session.
Bill?
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on the fact that I'm sure you guys have seen it as well, but MicroStrategy actually did a commercial for their mobile BI app.
Oh, no.
It was part of another commercial, but
Yeah.
yeah, I saw the same thing. It might have been a phone company, Sprint or something, but they were using MicroStrategy.
Exactly.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
I was
Well, they were,
wondering if it was just becoming big enough that MicroStrategy thought that was a great advertising opportunity to start having people think about using BI.
yeah, well, that's been a problem, you know, for us people to do analytics in the past, right? People just don't know the tools, and, you know, we don't publicize it very well, so.
So whose stock on the right-hand side have you bought?
I'm out of the stock market. I bought an old farmhouse, which I don't want to call it a money pit because my wife gets upset. But no, I'm fixing up a barn that's taking all my resources right now. So, but anyway, so whose stock would I buy? And I don't know. I think Roby is not public. I don't think many of these are public on the right side, but. They will be at some point. They aren't bought out first, so I think that's probably. Now, as far as Tableau, I don't think they've been bought out either yet, right? But and some of these have been around for quite a while. MicroStrategy is one of the first actually to get into this space. So here's some ideas. I'm not an expert on mobile BI. You know, I play one on TV. Think about it. There are some common sense things. Obviously, if these are going to be people who probably don't know much about analytics, it's got to be easy to use. Should I say fun? The F word, fun to use. In the IT space, it's kind of, you know, IT people sometimes we don't like the users. You know, they want this, they want that. You know, they don't know what they want, so it's pretty much a given. So, but we want them. Obviously, it's got to be attractive and interactive, so you can test out how much drill down. It's funny. The more I've been testing out these, I keep trying to tap on my the laptop screen here. It's not doing anything. Oh, Windows 8. Windows 8. They will have multi-touch function support on Windows 8, right? So, obviously, security is a big issue for corporate mobile BI, like Procter & Gamble. You know, the SAP Sybase has that Afaria tool, which I saw a demo, and it's very impressive. So that has mitigated a lot of the concerns about putting all this out there. I think there's all the major players now have invested in all kinds of encryption tools. Login, you know, you have to log in every time, you know, the power's down and all this stuff. And so the security has really, really improved to the point where, you know, these tablet computers are definitely the way to go because of the space and the size. You know, it's still portable, but you can do quite a bit of analytics on it. Fast. Guess how long a typical user will wait for their screen to respond on a tab on a mobile device? Let's see.
I was gonna say
2 to 3 seconds is right. On a desktop, they might wait 8 to 9 seconds. There is some difference. I don't know why, but the expectations are for very fast response time. So if you don't get it in 2 to 3 seconds to you, turn it on. You go back or flip it to the next app. I don't know. So this is a big issue. Now, independence, you know, of platforms. This is, I think, definitely, you know, we were talking about the different platforms for mobile BI, and I think the tools are getting better in the framework, so as independent as possible of one tool, even though the iPad seems to be dominating in terms of mobile BI in the corporate world right now. But we need to plan for the future. I think moving to independent platforms and devices is going to be the way to go. It cuts costs too. I mean, obviously it's a lot cheaper. Now you might be surprised, but not all those tools, right? Or vendors have tools that allow you to work offline, but you're not always going to be connected to the internet. You know, you're on the plane or whatever. You're not going to pay the outrageous fee to connect at the airport. But for people who travel, this is a big deal too, being able to work offline. Now, even though tablets seem to be the way to go, people still want to have the same consistent look and feel for the BI on their smartphone too. So that's another issue. 2/3 of users want both. And I think I had one slide that said 75% of mobile BI users do it from multiple devices. So they want to be able to go from their desktop to their smartphone, to their tablet, and a meeting, and share it and different things. So they expect it all to work. And it's even more complicated when we talk about bring your own device, right? How many of you are trying to implement the BYOD policy? Anyone? Talking about it? Are you doing it?
we're at the same place.
Oh, okay. Campbell. Anyone else? You're talking about it. So what does that mean?
A lot.
Yeah, what does it mean?
There's a lot of security and the stuff that you already talked about.
Right. So
What are you gonna allow and not allow? Yeah.
some companies give the new employee an option. You want an iPhone? You want an Android? You want a BlackBerry? They will give you options. And they've already figured out that they can support them all, how to support them all. So this is, we have to, Villanova, you know, we're going to be grappling with this in the near future, I'm sure, in terms of our standardized laptop we give the students. So this is another issue. And of course, collaborative. What do we mean by collaboration in the mobile space? You think about, you know, you collaborate with your smartphones, or how do you collaborate? What do you do? I mean, pardon?
Words with friends.
Where'd you turn it? Okay. Yeah, you and that guy in the airplane, or whatever, right? Who? Alec Baldwin, yes, famous for words with friends. Yeah, think about it. I mean, obviously you can text people, you can send photos. Now, in a BI context, you can also, you know, we're talking about alerts that are automatically generated. We're also talking about taking a photo of a chart and then commenting on it. That's pretty cool functionality to have. And you know, the whiteboard, that you can take a screenshot of a whiteboard, which works better on the tablet device than on the smartphone. So really, the tablets are the device that you want to take to a meeting and then say, look at this screen and look at this chart. That type of thing. More designed for collaboration. Whereas a desktop, you're not going to lug your desktop in. I mean, laptop, I guess, but it's more designed for collaboration and the meetings and things like that. The tablet is.
One thing that MicroStrategy from a collaborative standpoint,
yeah,
is sort of like a Facebook for enterprise. There's a service out there right now that does allows you to. It's like a SharePoint that you can pull stuff that has a lot of communication on. Because if I send an email to you, unless you know, you won't know unless somebody forwards you that email, all right? So having documents approved, being on the road, updating stuff, you know, we're doing that. So like social text is the company that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my students are, you know, project managers, and they are on the run, managing 5 different IT projects and stuff, and it's all done off their device. You know, they have their little Gantt charts, and they know exactly what needs to be done. They manage team, they have Skype calls and stuff. So IT is a perfect industry, I guess, for all this, since it's all knowledge, you know, and it's all about, you know, more and more collaboration in a 24/7 type environment. So if you're not comfortable with that, you're probably, you know, not going to be around too long. So, so let's see if we can show you a few of them here. I just bought this little new camera here, so let me see if we can get to work. I thought, you don't want me up here just talking on forever like a professor or something. So. Okay, so I have a document camera here that allows me to, I don't know, that quality isn't as good as I would like, but you can see this is actually MicroStrategy mobile app here. And so they've got a bunch of sample ones. Here's one, okay, Census, okay. Census Visualizer. So there's a lot of new visualization technologies, and we've had speakers talk about some of these. So these are pretty cool, the bubble graphs and all this stuff. They're kind of 3D bubble graphs too. So, I mean, you can tap on one and get some details here. You can also filter it. You can go by population growth in the region. And you can look at the map view, and then you can, yeah, so it's kind of a cool app. You know, think about from a critical perspective, you know, we can play around with it. Is this actually going to help us, you know, think, is this an appropriate, we don't even know what the decision they're talking about here, just a census app. So this might not be very useful for most of us, but you're running a election campaign, there's a whole new world of, you know, election apps, mobile apps out there to help you slice and dice the populace a little bit. So I won't go into this a whole lot here. one of the neat things, I don't know if this has the whiteboard, but I don't think it has the whiteboard, but where you can actually mark it up and then take a snapshot and email it immediately to people to collaborate with on a project. So I'll just show you one more of theirs. Let's see, here's a hospital quality. There we look and see what our hospitals are doing. Okay, there's a video. Hospitals near me. Let's see what. Again, the best mobile BI apps are pretty well defined on a specific decision, which I think is one of the issues that we were talking about earlier here. So you can see this shows you a map data, and they've linked it up to hospital rankings, and so you can tap on one of these, get more detailed data. So Bryn Mawr, oh, pretty close. So see, you can go by. Oh, here's a case where I can annotate and share, I guess. Okay. So I can say, you know, check out this one, or put a question mark, add a comment. So most of you probably have already seen this already, so I'm not here to sell any of this, by the way, so. I think you can, I've got the fat finger syndrome too, so. All right, well, let me cancel this one. There are a number of issues besides experience. You can actually rate them on different things, but so you can zoom in, go back. Let me show you another one. Here's I have Romby on here, which is famous for their black screen. Now you can see that's one issue. So you can actually see they've got a whole bunch of KPIs for each of these different companies. So it's fairly powerful, and I think you can tap on, well, one of the companies. Guess not. So this is a different display, and some of them have inline charts and graphs inline, which are pretty cool too. Here's a consumer electronic. Oh, let's see what that one looks like. This one has some inline chart features, which are pretty cool, and alert tools. You know, the red, yellow, green. I had one CIO tell me that he had a web application that was for aggregating purchasing of hardware for like all the mom and pop hardware stores. He was the CIO of the company, and he said when he put the red, yellow, green indicators on here, all the vendors that were involved with their website, all of a sudden they cared about being green. They didn't care about customer service at all until they could see it graphically on their particular web app that they had. But here you can see we've got what we call inline charts. I don't know if we can tap on, yeah, you can tap and get a little more info on each of these. Okay, so I'm going to close out. I'll show you, well, I guess that's enough for now. Any comments or questions? Let me see if I got, anyone want to show your app? Okay, so, well, going forward, let's just summarize if we can, thinking about, is this a revolution really in BI and analytics in general? You know, think about the biggest complaints against analytics in the past were really that they were difficult, hard to use. They just gave me more charts and more data. I didn't know how to use them. So if we can make it easier, this has always been our kind of argument. you know, and make sure that it's secure, obviously, are you going to get users using it more? Well, I think the answer will be yes as we keep moving forward here. You're going to see more people using BI in general. I have students come and talk to me and they say, I use this stuff all the time, you know, just the basic OLAP tools and stuff. And maybe they aren't doing a lot of sophisticated data mining, but they are using a lot of these tools today. But of course, one of the problems that IT people have, we just convert our old legacy app to a mobile. So, you know, if we have a pie chart, like a flat pie chart on our web-based BI app, and convert it, it looks crappy. No one wants to use it, right? So you think about, the bar has really been set by the iPad, right, with the high-def graphics. So you can't be happy with just converting these old apps for BI. And of course, we talked about a lot of the hardware network software issues going forward. You know, I think, you know, we're going to solve some of these to some extent, but you know, everyone wants more, right? In terms of data and processing speed. Think about it that way. I heard a quote from Henry Ford yesterday, and he said something like, you know, all customers really wanted was a faster horse. Right? It sounds kind of odd, but if you ask the customer, what do you want? This is what he would say. He said, if I asked the customer what I wanted a faster horse. But they didn't have any clue about a car that would be a faster horse. So that was kind of an interesting quote from Henry Ford. But from a research standpoint, really, are we getting better decisions, productivity? I mean, there's zero research out there right now because it's all happening. It took all of us by surprise, frankly. I mean, think about it. No one could have predicted the growth. I mean, Bill McDermott was talking about Steve Jobs calling him up saying, why do you want 3,000 tablets? Even he didn't, you know, anyone heard that?
Yeah.
And when Bill McDermott was here, and he'd say, well, we want them for our business. And then Steve Jobs said, well, you realize you can't print with them, you can't do this, you can't write notes, you can't do this and that. And McDermott said, well, we know, we want to use them for our sales force. So even Jobs didn't really envision that they would become a corporate necessity. So, and from an academic point, I envision that we would like them to expand more into true, what we call analytic apps, more powerful. I mean, there's no reason why we can't have users using them for supporting all phases of what we call the decision-making process, too, if you think about some of the research going on. The scorecards and the dashboards are really just a reporting tool, right? They're not doing analytics per se. So I think it's an interesting area, and any questions, topic, or questions? I hope I didn't go too far, but are we okay time-wise?
Types of questions.
Type of questions? Guess we took them all. Okay, great.